Whoa, this is deep.
Jacked Alpha War hero David McBride is facing trial on November 6th. He's facing life in prison for leaking details of Australian war crimes in Afghanistan to the media after the Australian Defence Force essentially ignored his concerns, including 10 illegal killings of unarmed men and children.
All I did was tell the truth.
Of course you did, but there's the truth and the truth. Let me show you.
That's awfully illegal.
I'd say it's awfully questionable. This is Scott Jones. As a nickname, Sojo.
An absolute fucking psychopath who's responsible for multiple mass graves throughout the Middle East.
He was in Australia's 2nd Commando Regiment where he was deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. For a while, Sojo ran an Instagram page and a podcast producing amazing content of war crime. Murderers are walking free, and a man is facing life in prison from his own government for reporting murders which he is legally required to report. It has to be said, I completely and 100% utterly agree with Tucker Carlson on this one.
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. June 2019. The federal police in Sydney raided the offices of the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, that's the state broadcaster, ABC. They weren't at all unclear about why they were raiding the offices. They said it out loud. Just days before the raid, ABC broadcast allegations from a whistleblower that embarrassed the government of Australia. This whistleblower said that Australia's military leaders had killed civilians in Afghanistan, including children, and had lied about it. The ABC broadcast that story. It wasn't a crime to broadcast the story, and Australia's federal police didn't pretend it was. Instead, they served the broadcaster with a warrant that authorized them, the police, to cover up any evidence of the Australian military's misconduct. Think about that for a minute. The warrant, and we're quoting it, allowed police to, quote, add, copy, delete, or alter any material they wanted to alter on the broadcaster's computer. That's not the kind of thing that happens in a free country.
Bit of an anticlimax, right? You were expecting something worse than the M&M thing. And I know it's just Australia prosecuting a veteran exposing war crimes, but hear me out. Good evening and welcome to Friendly Jordies tonight. Australia is a country most of you have probably never heard of. In fact, it's probably most famed for being the birthplace of supposed conservative former governor of California, now turncoat crazed liberal, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, the star of such kick-ass blockbusters as Terminator,
He's
Predator. Anyway, the whistleblower Tucker Carlson story about his
mannerisms.
me. I thought maybe Peter Dutton could free Assange, but not even Peter.
So I'm not going to be watching like all 13 videos because he's rehashing a lot of stuff sometimes and going into more detail. But we're going to just speed run briefly. Yeah, Julian Assange. He's Australian. He is an Australian citizen, and his government completely left him out to dry and fucking abandoned him when he did the right thing, which is exposing America's war crimes. Before this situation arose, there's already been history of the Australian government going, nah, fuck, whistleblowers don't mean shit, even if they're in the right.
This is an emergency announcement. Jacked Alpha War hero David McBride is facing trial on November 6th. He's facing life in prison for leaking details of Australian war crimes in Afghanistan to the media after the Australian Defence Force essentially ignored his concerns. David is facing life in prison. Whether he's guilty or not guilty will be decided by a Canberra jury of his peers. That is, if they can find the court with all those roundabouts. Canberra, am I right? On a completely unrelated note, did you know that jury nullification is a thing? Jurors can acquit a defendant no matter what if they think the law is unjust. Isn't that an interesting little tidbit? What a good thing to know. For some reason, I really think it's important for everyone to know that, especially in Canberra. Seeing as everyone in Canberra could forget things with all the legal marijuana. Canberra. Jury nullification. I've made half a dozen videos about David McBride by now, but this one may well be the last one that I make while he's a free man, not languishing in a prison cell. As such, before we get into anything, I want you to know that there are two things that you can do. You can donate to his legal fund here, which, gotta say, well done. You guys are responsible for donating a good $100,000 to it. Without that legal fund, David would be facing the best barristers in the country with, admittedly, a legendary solicitor, Mark Davis, but no barristers. Or maybe the Lionel Hutz of barristers. Or maybe Lionel Hutz would be a good lawyer for David McBride.
All I did was tell the truth.
Of course you did, but there's the truth and the truth. Let me show you.
That's awfully illegal.
I'd say it's awfully questionable. The second thing you should do is buy his new book. Links in the description. I've had the pleasure of getting an advanced copy of it, and it is worth it. David McBride has led a very interesting life. He was in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, Rwanda in the aftermath of the Civil War, and of course Afghanistan. The man has stories. McBride has led a very interesting life. He was in Northern Ireland during the Troubles.
So bro's been around since. He was in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. And then Rwanda? Damn. I know for some of yous out there, the word Rwanda, you're like, huh? What the fuck is that? You probably don't even know it's a place. Jesus Christ. Look at a map, motherfuckers, and even better, look at a fucking history book. It wasn't that long ago. Fuck around. Like, bro's been around since.
Rwanda in the aftermath of the Civil War, and of course Afghanistan. The man has stories. But now, to a far less impressive and jacked, but formerly far more powerful man,
Mike Pizzulo.
you might recognize him from his role as the Rat in the Hat from Bananas in Pajamas. Just to American viewers, you wouldn't know this, but this is the greatest punchline from an Australian child's childhood. That rat saying,
Oh, cheese and whiskers.
I'll try and relate it to this.
Oh, cheese and whistleblowers.
Let's see if that one makes the final cut.
I'm back. I have soup and garlic bread. I just made a fucking nice pumpkin soup. Roast pumpkin. Some homemade garlic bread. Check this out. Bada bing, bada boom. Anyway, we're going to get back to regular transmissions while I have a little bit of a snack.
Mike Pizzulo is more well known for basically being Australia's J. Edgar Hoover. The deep state is such a shadowy and faceless concept, but if there was a face to Australia's deep state, it would have to be Mike Pizzulo's joyless face. Today's
I mean, the cunt looks like a fucking Big Les character. Like, tell me he does not look like something that would be drawn on Microsoft Paint as representation of the head of the fucking counterintelligence of Service of Australia. Australia is such a budget USA that they couldn't even get someone with a fucking hairline. I mean, Jesus, I can't talk much. We've got Christopher Luxon, but fucking hell, like, these men, they need hair plugs. And they can't claim that, oh, well, you know, we've got better things to do. You're fucking off to Hawaii while your country's in a fucking cyclone or middle of fucking wildfires. Don't come and tell me that you can't go off to Turkey for a few fucking weeks.
to be Mike Pizzulo's joyless face. Today's my birthday. Mike Pizzulo, up until a few weeks ago, was the Secretary of the Department of Home Affairs, a career public servant who greasy pole climbed his way into being the inaugural head of Home Affairs, a super department that his political manoeuvring helped create. Pizzulo's deranged, hawkish, and outright partisan beliefs have been well known in political circles for quite some time, yet his nutty personal beliefs were further illuminated recently with the leaking of thousands of WhatsApp messages between him and Liberal power broker Scott Briggs. Messages that include these in the reference to the Liberal leadership spill. You need a right winger in there. People smugglers will be watching. Please feed that in. I don't wish to interfere, but you won't be surprised to hear that in the event of ScoMo getting up, I'd like to see Dutton come back to HA. Which, first off, you're one of the most high-ranking public servants in charge of ASIO, the AFP, Border Force, etc. And you're using WhatsApp? WhatsApp isn't secure. I swear the only people that use WhatsApp are still boomers that think texting costs too much. That is just...
2 years ago. Not long after that, we had some Signal scandals. What's with these guys? You're the head of the like the fucking Australia's CIA, and you're doing this shit. It's like Pete Hegseth's fucking little war room Signal chat. You guys cannot be that fucking stupid, surely not.
just scratching the surface of the stupidity and hypocrisy of Pizzulo. Now, how does this all relate to McBride? Well, this is where the very fact that these messages leaked undermines the prosecution of David McBride in two very distinct ways. First off, the fact that it leaked should tell you how seriously the top bureaucrats take sensitive information. Thousands of messages that could be extremely damaging to national security leaked, presumably against the will of Iron Mike Pizzulo, without him knowing any better. This is compared to McBride, who forensically went through the correct channels to blow the whistle on very specific allegations that in no way damage Australia's security or put lives at risk. That's not hyperbole. These messages contain plotting to rearrange Australia's main law enforcement and national security agencies under one department. And if China were privy to the fact that the new head of that department were to be the sea lion from Finding Dory, they could bribe him with, I don't know, I don't even know what I'm saying. He looks like the sea lion from Dory, that's it.
He's just touched on a good point when it comes to separations of certain law entities, right? You can't have police affairs, you know, investigative entity, the ones that hold the police accountable. You can't have that run by the same guy who is running the police, telling them to go and do the things that they need to be held accountable for. So you need separate entities to be able to hold each other accountable. When you have them all under one department, like we talk about dictatorship, right? And we think that it's just with up in the top, like, you know, your president, your prime minister, your world leader, your country's leader. That's not just dictatorship with that, you know, you can have dictatorship within these institutions that make it impossible for them to be held accountable for any wrongdoings.
And the second reason these leaks undermine the prosecution of David McBride is that these leaked texts highlight the ideological and demented character of the man who became the main driver of these prosecutions. The Afghan files, leaked by David McBride, were released in 2017. At this point, Mike Pezzullo had been agitating for the creation of Home Affairs for years. Home Affairs is officially established in December of 2017, with Mike Pezzullo as inaugural secretary and Peter Dutton as the inaugural minister. This move takes the Australian Federal Police out of the Attorney General's department, puts it squarely in the hands of the two most psychotic spooks in the country. Keep in mind, the Attorney General at this time...
And this is what Donald Trump was doing by decentralizing and taking out the backbones of these institutions and then handing them over to complete loyalists. Department of Defense handed over to Pete Hegseth, now changed it to Department of War just because it sounds cooler. Fucking frat boy. You know, the FBI handed over to Kash Patel, and Kash Patel was running around like a fucking psychopath, you know, just completely fucking with constitutional law. And DHS, don't get me started on that with fucking Kristi Noem and ICE. These playbooks have been going on for a while, and they're shared between our governments, and we need to be holding our governments accountable and our counterparts overseas.
I was George Brandis. The leaked text revealed that Pezzullo held him in contempt as Brandis was against the creation of Home Affairs, so Pezzullo pushed for his removal as Attorney General. George Brandis is no longer the Attorney General after the same cabinet reshuffle in which Home Affairs merges, with Christian Porter becoming the next Attorney General in December of 2017. Why this is significant is that George Brandis, bit of a libtard, in that he actually took democratic principles that the Liberal Party once claimed to represent seriously, despite authorising the raids on a different whistleblower, Witness K and his lawyer Bernard Collaery. Watch my video on them here. But basically, they blew the lid on the Australian government spying on the East Timor government to get the upper hand in negotiations. So yeah, Brandis went after them, but he quite nobly refused to authorise their prosecutions, as he understood that doing so would kind of undermine Australia's whole liberal democratic thing we've got going on. But basically, as soon as Porter took over as Attorney General, the AFP was under the watchful eye of Dutton and Pezzullo. Collaery and Witness K are charged. It took 6 months after the creation of Home Affairs and Pezzullo to get his rat hands on the AFP for that to happen. And then, a few months later, David McBride is charged. It's a strange enough timeline for any reasonable person to conclude prosecutions only began because of Dutton and Pezzullo's Machiavellian hijacking of multiple government departments to execute their paranoid anti-Australian ideology. And it is anti-Australian. All you have to do is listen to Pezzullo, who espouses publicly his guiding ideology, to conclude that this is a dangerous and seriously sick man. All you Bill Gates conspiracy types, you want to hear a quote that should actually be of great concern to you. Forget the whole George Soros and Bilderberg group's conspiracies. You don't need to invent boogeymen to be afraid of. Listen to this. The state has to increasingly embed itself, not majestically, sitting at the apex of society dispensing justice, but the state has to embed itself invisibly into global networks and supply chains and the virtual realm. In a seamless and largely invisible fashion, intervening on the basis of intelligence and risk settings, increasingly at super scale and at very high volumes. You know those people that are online a little too much and their third eye opens up and they start to truly get it? Doesn't that sound like a laundry list of everything they're afraid of? But here's the thing. Instead of doing that, I've got a vision for the state. How about the state does a bit of healthcare, a bit of border security, uses its police to investigate and prosecute actual crimes, not destroy barristers, cum whistleblowers who expose state-sanctioned extrajudicial killings. Think about it. That quote is illuminating Pezzullo and Dutton's vision, an unaccountable shadow government that knows everything that you do, can do anything it wants, including kill innocent people, and can crush anyone that stands in its way.
But this is the playbook, right? Create a boogeyman that comes out of nowhere and say that you need to save everyone from the boogeyman and become the boogeyman. Donald Trump did it. We're gonna destroy the deep state, rip it apart, no more deep state, transparency, clear as glass. And then what? He comes in and what? Creates a whole fucking deep state? This is what they did. Same playbook.
It was scary how much those two got done when they were in charge. They were so eager to try out their shiny new toy of Home Affairs. In just 2 years, Australia went through an unprecedented authoritarian lurch, authorising raids on the ABC and News Corp journos, which I know I should be all for if it was purely just to annoy them, but come on, you want...
Does this sound familiar? I'm gonna get rid of the deep state, comes in and starts destroying the trust of the institutional press. We were already starting to distrust, mainstream media as it was, but we distrust them for a whole nother reason now.
I think the call is coming from inside the house.
A security apparatus with restraint. Dutton and Pezzullo did the deep state equivalent of swatting. A massive and dangerous waste of police time and resources. Pezzullo was then accused of making calls to a senator critical of the raid in order to intimidate him. Leaked messages reveal that Pezzullo was also floating a D-notice system wherein the government could prevent the media from reporting on things that the government deems damaging to national security. Seeing as how far the government are going to destroy David McBride, You can bet allegations of war crimes would come under the D-notice system. Pazuello's reign over Home Affairs was a seriously turbulent time for the credibility of the Australian public service, and I haven't even begun to mention the integrity scandal surrounding Home Affairs that the new National Anti-Corruption Commission is beginning to uncover that happened under Pazuello's reign. Mark Dreyfus and Anthony Albanese have already done one thing right, and that they've removed the AFP from the Department of Home Affairs. Now it's time to drop the prosecutions. To continue the prosecution of David McBride is to continue the failed legacy of these rabid ideologues of Mike Pazuello, Peter Dutton, and Christian Porter. Prosecutions have no place in being ideological. So if you're in Labor, speak up. Do everything you can to get to Mark Dreyfus. Do not be complicit in Mike Pazuello's passion project. If you are in Canberra, share this video and my videos on David McBride, links in the description, with everyone you know. Also, for no particular reason at all, just a fun fact, jury nullification exists. Anyway, let me know where you can get the best legal read. And if you're in Sydney or Melbourne, most important of all, come see my live show.
This is a major
answer a
update.
cutting-edge legal question that is apparently on a lot of people's minds. Is it possible to sue yourself for defamation? The answer is no, it's not. That's why Sojo, this guy, had to threaten to sue me instead. You might remember earlier this year I made a horribly distasteful video disparaging an Australian war hero, Afghan war veteran Scott Jones of the 2nd Commando Regiment. Now, if you're in Australia, you can't find that video on my channel anymore because YouTube took it down after they received a legal complaint. We'll get to what I think about YouTube censorship later on. But first, let me just refresh my memory by rewatching the video on someone else's channel.
People that hear these stories that think it's fucking a bit out of line to be talking about that stuff, I get it. It's funny. He's talking to an absolute fucking psychopath who's responsible for multiple mass graves throughout the Middle East. So we shot a couple of dudes and the whole village had come out to sort of see what was going on, and naturally they weren't too happy. Then again, who likes seeing your neighbour get shot in the fucking face?
This is Scott Jones, but like all legends called Scott, he prefers a nickname, Scojo. Really, the gist of the video is conveyed in that clip. In that, this is a culture of our ex-special forces who we sent to Afghanistan ostensibly to liberate the citizens from the Taliban. Is it any wonder we didn't win the hearts and minds of Afghanistan? We came in with maybe the same degenerate, bloodthirsty psychosis that some Talibs had, but we lacked the austere, pious righteousness that comes with a jihad. Instead, spouting vague libtard principles about women's rights, except these were the guys apparently fighting to bring third-wave feminism to Canada.
And you know for sure that these same guys who are there going, you can't be putting women in masks and making it so they can't show their ankles. That's not right. We gotta fight for our feminist sisters over there in the Afghanistan. And then come home and tell their wives, no, you're not allowed to leave the house with a skirt that short. Oh, I'm scared that guys are gonna look at you. You're not allowed to have a job. You gotta stay at home and look after the kids. You wanna talk about women's fucking rights? Bro, look at your own backyard first. Fucking throwing stones in glass houses, eh?
The guys who set up an Instagram page dedicated to posting pictures of diggers at brothels. Now, I'm not the morality police or even the federal police. Slay the house down, Scojo.
Bruh, like, I tell you, I literally see the future. You can just fucking see it. Like, you don't need to say less.
I mean, maybe I'm behind the times, and Sojo and co, after destroying the Taliban, were going to teach the Afghan people about intersectional sex, positive fourth-wave feminism. And, no, they weren't. This is the same page that they made fun of gays. Finally, someone tells it like it is. They are homosexuals. So I guess the whole point of that video was to contrast how our institutions treat soldiers that are massive liabilities, as they just pretty much just say very nasty shit about their intentions in going to war, i.e., they only want to go to war to kill, and that they hate the races of the people.
So go out there, pour yourself a Milo, enjoy life, and potentially go over to Ukraine and fucking fight for the Ukrainian people, not because you believe in their cause, but because you like violence, and that's okay. And people come around and go, I thought you hated Afghanistan. Why do you have a Pashtun blanket? What does that say? And it says, this blanket is big enough to keep the whole of Afghanistan warm, but I didn't want them to keep warm because I fucking hated them. And it makes me laugh every single time that I see it. So maybe that's a way to deal with your mental health from Afghanistan, is just to fucking laugh at the Afghans every now and then. If you're having a bad day,
I don't know, see that one.
did you laugh at the Afghan people and laugh at them? Because it's pretty kind of funny what happened.
Our video was comparing that to honourable soldiers that risk it all in order to save lives.
Get that man on a podcast and ask him how he feels about Aborigines in his own country, and you'll see exactly what type of fucking man he is. Because if he can say that about going into somebody else's country and wiping out a fuck ton of their people, then what will he say about the historical fucking borderline genocide that happened with the Aborigine people of Australia?
I'm not saying Australia's institutions treated Scojo well, just better than some soldiers, because at least Scojo isn't facing life in jail, unlike David McBride, an Australian Army lawyer, a former barrister who leaked evidence of war crimes to the media. David is facing court in Canberra in November, where he is staring down life in prison, to be decided by a jury of his peers. Now, on a completely unrelated note, I just find this so fascinating that I have to shoehorn it into every video that I can. Canberrans, did you know that jury nullification is a thing? Yeah, you can just find someone not guilty if you think the law they broke was unjust. Anyway, David McBride's got a biography coming out on the 14th of November, which I've linked in the description, and I highly recommend that you buy it, not only to support David McBride, but just look at him. He's got stories. But enough about that high-stakes legal drama. As I mentioned before, I'm facing my own John Grisham-esque legal thriller. The original video I made about Scojo apparently pissed him off so much that after making thinly veiled death threats,
I'd like to respectfully call upon all meme trolls to get out there and do your best. But at no point should anyone use any threats of violence against the man, because he recently had his house firebombed. You hate to see it. Wasn't me though. Could have been anyone.
after that, Scojo lawyered up and sent an extremely whiny legal threat to me.
The reason I've taken away my ugly mug, so you can see the full document, but also so you can see the name of the firm that decided to take this case. I'll just say real quick, how did Sojo put it? No reason do I say to use, your boycott abilities or review abilities or your freedoms of speech to fuck with this business, because they may have already been fucked with. It wasn't me though, could have been anyone. Go ahead, put this whole fucking company on blast, make it so that nobody feels comfortable working at their law firm ever.
Now, since I'm a fair and balanced YouTuber, I think you all deserve to hear Scojo's point of view, so I'm just going to read the letter out to you verbatim. But first off, in a display of my generous nature, let me clear something up. In the original video, I made some claims about how tall Sojo appeared to be, as he really looks like a leprechaun. We have since independently verified that Sojo is a respectable height of 6'1 to 6'2. But we still don't have any proof that he isn't a leprechaun on stilts. Anyway, now that egregious slide of this short man's character has been justly rectified.
Well, I mean, if he ain't short physically, he's got short personality.
The letter. For one, it's not sent by a defamation solicitor, it's sent by a firm called Operational Legal, a firm that seems to specialise in getting compo for cops and soldiers, so I'm not going to be too hard on this firm, but my advice to the solicitor who wrote the letter, Paul James, stick to what you know. Not only because you are severely underexperienced in the field of defamation to be sending out concerns notices, which will become apparent when we read the letter, but come on. Surely your other jobs fighting for compensation for veterans are far more noble than writing whiny letters to YouTubers on behalf of this guy. I respect you so much more than certain defamation specialists. Just stick to the noble work, Paul. Don't go down the same wretched path certain other solicitors named Paul chose. Don't get that reference? Well, you would if you came to my live show. It's ridiculous how much resources are wasted on defamation cases in this country. Lawyers and judges aren't dumb. It pains me to admit this, but they are some of the smartest people in this country. So what a brain drain defamation is. It's like forcing Oppenheimer to work on developing the greatest fireworks show of all time. There's better things that guy could be doing. Judges, instead of ruling on important issues that form the direction of this country, are spending inordinate amounts of time listening to the tantrums of the rich and famous dressed up in verbose prose by morally dyslexic overachievers, who you just know have massive chips on their shoulders as every day they suffer the indignity of advocating for far dumber but far more powerful people than themselves. On that note, let's read the letter that I got sent, shall we? Dear Mr. Shanks Markovina, reconcerns notice pursuant to Prt3 Division 1 of the Defamation Act 2005 New South Wales. We act for Scott Hamilton Jones. Boring. We refer to your publication titled True War Crime Podcast, published on the 22nd of February 2023 on YouTube and found at the URL... I'm not going to read that part out. The publication makes several defamatory imputations of our client. They are false and completely denied by our client. Imputations of concern. The publication asserts the following defamatory imputations about our client while serving or in relation to his service as a member of the Australian Defence Force.
Now, this is what I find hilarious, because Jordan didn't go and read a transcript of what these guys were saying and didn't quote them with his words, with his voice. He quoted them with their own clips, their own voice. The thing with defamation, I could say, I met Winston Peters one time and he asked to suck my dick. And, he can take me to court for defamation. We go and hash it out in court, evidence this, that, the other, right? But if I get a recording of Winston Peters saying that he wants to suck my dick, and then I post it on the internet, he can't sue me for defamation because he fucking said it. And I have the proof and I have the evidence, because just like in America, there is the ability to push what's called a frivolous lawsuit, which means basically it has no basis to it, it has no substance, and it's just a way to try and drain the other person, the person that you're going after, of funds and stuff because they have to pay for lawyers and legal fees, and that's what this seemed to have been.
That our client committed war crimes, that our client violated the Geneva Conventions, that our client killed innocent people in Afghanistan, that our client breached the rules of engagement while deployed in the Afghan war, that our client participated in the practice of blooding, whereby a person under the control of ADF personnel directed younger ADF members as an initiation to unlawfully kill a person detained by the ADF personnel, that our client planted evidence referred to as throwdowns on innocent people killed in the Afghan war to justify their being killed by ADF personnel, that our client carried ICOM radios for the purpose of planting evidence on persons killed in combat.
Now, if you guys remember, because we just watched this video, Jordies didn't say any of that shit. He said, watch this video, and showed the video of Sojo saying that shit.
Our client lied and or was dishonest to military lawyers about the circumstances which people were killed in Afghanistan. That our client obtained a tattoo to boast about planting evidence on innocent people killed in the Afghan war. Now, if you've watched the original video, you'll know that I didn't make any of those imputations against Sojo, and to the extent that some of them are made, they're made by Sojo himself. But, as pointed out in my earlier in-depth legal analysis, unfortunately for Sojo, it's impossible to sue himself for defamation, so what Sojo's solicitor Paul has done is include any mention of anything in the video and claim that it's an imputation against Sojo. In the video, I mentioned that a government investigation into war crimes committed by the Australian Defence Force, the Brereton report, found that there was a practice of blooding in the ADF, wherein you get a junior soldier to kill a prisoner to give them their first kill. Suddenly, in Paul's letter, that becomes an imputation that Sojo's done it. I also made reference to Walsh in the original video. By Paul's logic, does that mean that there's an imputation that Sojo's not in fact a bro, but a debate bro? They both resemble leprechauns. It's a stronger argument, but this letter gets even more desperate. Look at the imputations it claims I made. That our client intentionally misled the Australian Defence Force Investigative Service about the circumstances in which persons were killed by ADF personnel in Afghanistan. That our client was suspected of war crimes by the Inspector General of the ADF's Afghan Inquiry, referred to as the Brereton Inquiry. That he was involved in the killing of 2 Afghan police officers at a vehicle checkpoint.
Now, we just watched this video, and no, he did not say Sojo did this shit. He said, hey, check out this clip of him and his mate on the podcast talking about this shit, because Machine Gun Dave got the nickname for this very thing.
Round the corner comes this little postie by, a couple of blokes on it. Basically took half his head off. The bloke behind him copped the rounds that went straight through him. The bloke on the back started yelling out, "Policia, policia." We knew at that stage we just hit 2 cops.
Are they dressed in police uniform?
According to the official report, they were not.
What are your chain of command doing at that point?
At the start, I thought we were going to get thrown under the bus. We knew we were going to go back for this investigation. The guys pulled together, and it was basically everyone write down their story. This is what happened. It basically was what happened. Besides the uniform thing, they clearly were wearing uniforms. A lot of the senior, like the secos and that, basically saying we need to stick together during this.
Sojo was not mentioned as to this incident.
Our client lied to investigators about the circumstances in which 2 Afghan police officers were killed at a vehicle checkpoint. It is insane that lawyers are allowed to play dumb like this in order to intimidate people. Anyone who watched the original video can see that those imputations stem from a man Sojo was interviewing on his podcast, who was admitting to Sojo that he shot 2 uniformed Afghan police officers.
Sorry, I've got to interrupt for a second, because this has just hit me with another thing. They talk about, make jokes and that's how you deal with the mental health. No. Why can't men show vulnerability? Sit there on a podcast, talk about the horrific shit that happened, the horrific shit that you've seen, have a little bit of a cry, and show these younger ones that it's fucking okay to feel. It's okay to go through some shit and later on in life be like, fuck man, that really done a number on my head. Because otherwise, you're going to end up with more kids going out there feeling like they can't fucking talk about the serious shit and joke about it and end up fucking killing themselves. This is the bullshit that we are trying to fucking get rid of. This is the bullshit that you want to make fun of people for going to therapy and shit, yet one of the best fucking all-time grossing TV shows, one of the most famous fucking, we love this TV show, fucking American shit ever, is the fucking Sopranos, where the main character, the whole fucking storyline is centered around a gangster who had to go to fucking therapy. And that was fucking back in the 80s, 90s. This is something that men have been putting off for a long fucking time, been putting the pressure on their children. It's just generational bullshit. If you can fucking deal with it, when you have kids one day, they'll be able to fucking deal with some shit. If your son, God forbid, ever gets sent off to war to fucking fight in Iran, you best believe it'll be people like me that'll be teaching him that he'll be able to fucking talk. It'll be people like me that he comes to and says, hey man, I've got some shit on my mind and I need to fucking talk about it. It'll be people like you that he goes to and jokes about shit down at the pub, while meanwhile, deep inside goes, fuck man, I hate myself for this. fuck man, I want to die because of this. You are not helping. You are making things fucking worse.
More lawyer logic. For the purposes of threatening me, not only does any mention of anything become a possible imputation against Scojo, but if I comment on a clip of an interview, the actions of the interviewee become the actions of the interviewer. So by this logic, if I play a clip of some journo interviewing Biden, the journo should be able to threaten to sue me for imputing that they're an ice cream loving senior citizen that says things like, I was in Delaware once, Jack. I remember Delaware had a big cowboy hat. We'd all say, you better take that hat off. Anyway, happy Thanksgiving, folks. All this makes the concerns notice defective from the outset, but you know what makes this concerns notice? Just not even a concerns notice. There's no particulars, in that there are no specific lines or bits of the video identified by the letter that would make the basis of a defamation suit against me. Just vague, imprecise accusations about the video, making all these awful imputations about Scojo. The reason for this is because, to the extent Scojo is defamed, he did it all himself. The parts of my video that are the most damaging to Scojo's reputation are these clips.
No matter how heavy your pack is before emission, there's always room for a throwdown. Or two. Your RSM won't let you drink on deployment. Fill this up with a litre worth of vodka. Or improvise, adapt, and overcome. Yeah, fuck oath, cob loaf. Hang on a second though. Yeah, you're good.
And as pointed out by my lawyers Xenophon Davis in their response, Scojo shared the video before it was even publicly published, and it was still in its draft state on my Patreon. If there was something that apparently seriously defamed you, why would you share it everywhere?
That's the other thing too. You talk about a situation like that in good light and, you know, oh nah, we're so fucking proud of ourselves. Then you go and release that to an audience. You have it in the context of, fuck yeah, fucking manly shit, yeah, this is great, war crimes, woo, it's perfectly fine. And then you bring it up in a context of, hey, look, fucking war crimes, holy shit, maybe not, hey. And then all of a sudden it's, oh well, you're just a fucking...
So yeah, get in those comments, boys. Fire up.
Especially a video as harmful as Scojo's lawyer's purport mine was. Listen.
And that's the thing too. Someone makes a video about me, I'm not going to be telling people go to the comment section of that video. Because guess what? Even if you're typing fuck this video shit, it has engagement. So therefore pumps it through the algorithm. Thank you, mate. You've just helped this video end up on my YouTube channel. Like, I'm now watching it. Thank you, Scojo. You've just fucked yourself.
Harm caused by the defamatory matters. The publication of these matters has or is likely to cause serious harm to our client's reputation, including subjection to public disrepute, ridicule, contempt, and odium, economic loss of employment income, loss of opportunities for future employment, estrangement from family and friends, severe emotional and mental distress, isolation from the defense community, including veteran groups and events, being banned.
It's not like it wasn't on the internet and fucking Jordan went and posted up on the internet. It was already fucking there. He just shone a fucking spotlight on it. That's the only thing here. He didn't go and take something from a private computer or something and post it on the internet, leaking that stuff. He just went, hey, look, over there. This is this guy's videos. Go and check out the videos, guys. You know, support a fellow content creator. Well, if they didn't like the fucking content, that's on you, not me.
And from access to defense establishments, reducing his opportunity to develop relationships with other veterans. Loss of business opportunity in relation to potential defense industry work. The damage to the reputation of our client gives rise to a reasonable expectation of a significant sum of damages were this matter to proceed to court. Should our client commence action in defamation regarding the matters complained of, he would be undoubtedly entitled to aggravated damages. As previously noted, the matters our client complains of were targeted and malicious and aimed to defame our client in the eyes of his friends, work, colleagues, and the community. The imputations are blatantly false, and the publication has caused our client to suffer humiliation. Humiliation. Loss of business opportunities. Scojo, just admit it. You're a clown. It's okay, I am one too, but you can't put on a clown show and then complain that someone reported that your shoes were comically large and bought a sprayed out of your pocket flower. And as for severe and emotional distress, you must be a masochistic clown, like the one in Slipknot, because you shared the video multiple times. Before I forget that, let me make this point again. It's very unfortunate you can't sue yourself, Scott. But if you could, I wonder what you demand. Because this is what he demanded from me. Undertakings. We are instructed to demand that you undertake, within 48 hours of receiving this notice, permanently remove the publication from YouTube and any other platform, website or application on which it is published. Not republish the imputations in any form. Publish a full and unqualified apology subject to approval by our client on YouTube and Twitter. Posted under the relevant Friendly Jordies account. I kind of do
Jordy, should have bust out the ukulele.
want to do that one as a gag. Send a signed copy of that apology letter addressed to our client to this office. Why? Payment of our client's reasonably incurred legal costs. Well, depends on what you're charging, mate. Up to the time of his acceptance, if any, of an offer to make amends, should you make one. If you fail to comply with the above, our client reserves his right to commence legal proceedings without further notice to you. These demands are a far cry from Scojo's original response, which was to whine about free speech, direct his fans to my video and claim that I wanted his Instagram and podcast shut down as they were some of the only channels disproving the lefty narrative that Australians committed war crimes in Afghanistan.
A lot of people in our media that don't agree with my opinions on the fact that the war crimes that have been alleged against Australian Special Forces is actually bullshit. Now, because they don't like that rhetoric, they preach for free speech, but they don't actually want that. They don't actually want people with opposing views to share their views on what they think actually happened over there. So what happened is, just last night, an individual by the name of Jordan Shanks decided to do a podcast on my podcast, utilizing all of my content, photos, videos, and jokes as a story that he wants to promote that I'm an absolute piece of shit.
He lives it upside down.
Oh, they don't want freedom of speech. They don't want freedom of speech, and I'm going to send a letter to him telling him that I don't like his speech. I want to stop his speech. I want to remove his speech from the internet. Does it sound familiar?
Can you believe this? Scojo reckons his podcast and Instagram exonerates the culture of Australian Special Forces in Afghanistan, and because of that, I want it censored. Yes, that's why I made a 30-minute video about your pod, playing long segments and entire Instagram videos, because I didn't want anyone to see them. Because I'm so malicious, I needed to take down the one digger telling the truth about Australia's involvement in the Afghan war. There'd be less cognitive dissonance if a serial killer objected to his snuff film being played in court for the reason that the police don't want him circulating any more snuff films because they just show how innocent he is. At least the serial killer would be right about one thing. The police do want to stop him making snuff films. Scojo, I don't want to be the censor of you. To me, there's nothing better than having the freedom to say whatever you want as it ventilates views that are as close to the truth about this war as we are ever going to get.
The thing is too, why would I want you to stop self-snitching? Like, you're out here snitching on yourself. I don't want you to stop that. In fact, I want more people to do that. Do you know how many people in the Catholic Church, MAGA, Israel, that I'd love just to come out on Twitter and just say the, well, I mean, fucking a lot of them do say the quiet part out loud, but this is...
Encourage you to podcast and post as much as possible. It's a shame you want to censor me. The more Australians hear veterans discuss war in an unfiltered context, no matter what they're saying, the better. You couple Sojo or David McBride's anecdotes with the fact that the West failed to complete almost every stated objective of the war in Afghanistan, and the fact that over 40,000 civilians died in the conflict, and you get a more compelling picture of the futility of our military entanglements than any politician or general will ever grant. And up until very recently, the Court of Public Opinion has been the only court Australia's conduct in Afghanistan has gone to trial in, and I guess, subsequently, defamation cases, which is a shocking indictment on Australia's elite, demonstrating a massive collective failure of our political, military and legal class. As when time came to stand up for all these principles that the elites learn about in their expensive university degrees, who stood up? Our politicians? Most concern our former Defence Minister Peter Dutton displayed was when there was a chance these allegations could damage our relationship with the US. Our military leaders? Well, they've always unilaterally absolved themselves of any guilt. How were they to know any better?
And plus, what was it that Scojo said on his podcast? Don't worry, because you'll be backed all the way up. All the way up means to the tippy top of the fucking pyramid, guys.
Defamation lawyers? They saw these war crimes allegations as a way to make a buck off the bruised egos of damaged soldiers. One of the only men who stood up and did the right thing is now facing trial. In November, David McBride will become the first Australian soldier on trial for his conduct in the Afghan war. Not because he did anything wrong, no, because he attempted to force Australia's institutions to do the right thing. So congratulations to Patricia McDonald SC, the barrister, and all the other lawyers that picked up the brief of prosecuting McBride. You guys will be running the first criminal trial stemming from Australia's conduct in Afghanistan. What an honour! I'm sure it was a very competitive process, and all of Australia's top legal minds were tripping over themselves to prosecute a barrister, a former colleague of theirs, who exposed war crimes. I'm sure you're going to be proud to have that on your record and conscience for the rest of your life. But back to more important matters. Me. Not long after Scojo sent this threat to me and presumably to YouTube, the video was taken down due to a defamation complaint. And I'm not usually one to whine about YouTube, they pay my bills, but my lawyer sent a letter back to Scojo's lawyers rebuking their threat, and we never heard from them again. So we appealed the YouTube takedown complaint, pointing this out and pointing out that to the extent anyone is defamed in the video, it's not done by me, it's done by themselves, and that is in the public interest to have this video up. But the video's still down, which is a shame because I really do want people to.
And I know US, Australia, very different place. They're not. It's like how New Zealand is not any different to Australia or to the US. We have the same playbooks. We don't fucking care.
To see you, Sojo, I need to emphasise this again. I don't want to censor you. So if I can't have my video about you up, I make this appeal instead. Please keep posting, Scott. Please restart your podcast. Post as many Instagram reels as your heart desires. I want as many lawyers, politicians, judges, military leaders to see your videos, Sojo, because don't take this the wrong way. When they look at you, they're forced to reckon with their massive collective failures. They created you, and they deserve to know who you are.
So, again, none of my friends have been charged with anything, but your friends have. Your friend David McBride is about to go to jail for a very long time. It looks like if you read the articles that are being published in the news, and that's a damn shame. While most of my friends, we're going to be at the beach sinking piss.
Before we go out, because this might be the last video about McBride before the McBride trial, do you remember Troy Stolz? He was another whistleblower that was to do with Clubs New South Wales and Pokies. He donated 10 grand to McBride. What a legend.